Just doing a really quick video on the new patch notes 26.11. So the first thing that we're gonna see in the patch is that they actually increased the role quest adjustment on mid lane. They increased the bonus AD and AP. It's 8% instead of 6%. I will say this change is not that important unless you're playing an assassin mid lane, such as LeBlanc or Kiana, and you're also getting some Drakes, Fire Souls. Personally, I still don't really see 8% as a really high number. To actually make it useful, you need other multipliers on top of it. I will say that's still interesting to see that they're thinking about it. Mid lane quest is probably one of the weakest right now compared to bot lane, top lane. Those ones are the best. So I would love to see even something more. Finally, Riot Games understood that enchanters are just completely broken. Everyone is playing enchanter, no matter the healer, no matter how like their age. They don't really care about that. Aerie deals less damage in the early game. It's a bit less oppressive in the laning phase. When you were playing against this Aerie, it felt kind of like worse than a Comet. I will say that like Comet was always like worse compared to Aerie. In general, I always felt that, especially with champions like Lulu. You could always have a better shield and also deal more damage. Of course, no one is gonna go Comet Lulu, but what I'm saying is, think about Karma, for example. Karma Comet was almost never played compared to Karma Aerie. Karma Aerie was so much better every single time. So I'm pretty happy that I'm seeing some nerfs in the early game, especially because that Mantra Q plus Aerie was absolutely crazy. There are other champions which abuse really well Aerie. That's just like for you to understand what was happening with Aerie. Finally, we see Aftershock getting some love. I think Aftershock is one of the least play rate runes in the game, I feel like. People don't want to play Aftershock because you can just ignore tanks. That's what it is usually. Like you can just like walk to them. It's really hard to make it work. Most of the times people always want to go Guardian, but I would love to see also some people going Aftershock, especially when they are the main engage. Because this is mainly a support keystone, it's obvious that people would love to go either Guardian or something else as support. Aftershock always depends a lot. And of course, other roles don't really like to go for Aftershock because they have always better options. So again, this is mostly for the engage support meta, where we are just going to engage and you're going to tank as much as you can while you're being the main engager. I would love to see the shift. I would love to see support players actually become the main engagers in the team fights. I'm not so sure this is going to be enough. So what's going to change simply is that you get more armor, flat, and MR. That's actually a pretty good change, especially in the early game, and the bonus is slightly weaker, but it's a huge buff from an early game perspective. They are buffing Guardian. The cooldown finally is lower. Honestly, thank God. The main issue is that Guardian is not only used by engagers, it's also used by mages and enchanters. They even proc it better. So buffing this rune is always a bit of a coin flip. The cooldown is lower in early game, 75 seconds instead of 19 seconds. 1 minute and a half was crazy, to be honest. The shield is slightly less. I wouldn't say that's really important. Guardian always felt a bit too much, especially in the laning phase. You had this big shield, but most of the times the time in which you had it was so low that people couldn't even burst it out by the time you had it. So I wouldn't say that the change on numbers is important. What changes is how many times you can proc it consistently. This will work so much better now against poke comps compared to earlier where it was mostly into all-in engage comps that could have bursted you out. Dreammaker is getting some changes. I won't go deep into that again. There's less damage. Basically, it's a slight nerf. I would say that enchanters never had the decision. They always went for Dreammaker. They had better shields. They had better everything. I just felt like overall it was the best damage defense ratio in the game compared to other options. So I'm pretty happy that they are nerfing it down and they're not keeping it like that. Moonstone is also getting nerfed. They nerfed how much health people around you get when you're healing the main target. For example, you're Soraka and you're healing one player with W, and all the other players near you are getting a tiny boost of HP based on how much you heal the guy. Now the percentage is slightly lower. It's kind of noticeable, I will say, especially if you're like an healing machine. I will say that it's still a really good item. We gotta see what happens. Imperial Mandate got changed. There's a lot of changing coming up. Imperial Mandate got nerfed to the hell of the ground because basically Nami was hyper abusing this item, and apparently they didn't manage to find a middle ground. I felt like they could easily have nerfed Nami again, because Nami is still completely oppressive as hell in the current meta. I would have nerfed her a bit more, and I wouldn't have nerfed Imperial Mandate, which is an item that basically no one plays outside of Nami, with Lucian or with Karthus, where the only objective of this build is to use your own Karthus ults, and he literally one-shots half the lobby. So there were a lot of really broken strategies with Nami Imperial, compared to like other champions which no one were playing with Imperial. I would have never changed the item, I would have easily nerfed Nami, and I would have been completely fine. Essus Ophelia stores less damage, which means that you need to deal more damage in order to heal more. I would have preferred maybe a statistical change rather than something like this. Solari gives 5 armor and magic resisting more. I think that this is a really good change. In general, tanks should be tanks, enchanters should be enchanters, right? So having 5 armor in plus, magic resistance in plus, it seems like a really low number, but when you're in the early game, 5 armor and magic resistance actually does change a lot how you perceive damage in the laning phase. So Locket Rush, or in general having Locket earlier than the enemy, might actually change a lot the laning phase. Knight's Vow now redirects more damage. That's quite interesting for Shen players, I guess. Like, you can take that and ult bot lane and have the Knight's Vow and simply play more hyper carry comp bot lane. I'm quite happy about this change. We might see sooner or later some more interesting comps, especially in competitive, I will say. Tech is getting a tiny change. From what I understood, again, I didn't really understand. I think that basically instead of triggering on ult, like as soon as you press ult, I gotta see how it works, honestly. I might be completely wrong with this, but honestly it doesn't seem like an important change at all. Maybe it's a buff, maybe it's a nerf, I didn't really understand that. Now we go to the champions. Brand gets a tiny armor nerf. That's pretty good because usually Brand gets to be played bot side. When you play bot lane, you tend to play an ADC, and ADC is AD. But Brand naturally should be playing as a mid laner, so if you put in mid lane and you're playing against a mage, it should feel so much better compared to bot lane, for example. The problem was mostly Brand Nami, as I'm always saying. Brand in general doesn't feel too oppressive. I think he has a lot of damage. The new rune, Deadfire Touch, is really strong, but I wouldn't say that that's what made him really strong. What made him really strong is simply the interactions that you have with some supports. Again, Nami makes him literally insanely strong. You can always stay in lane, perma W, and the damage is really high. So it's always about the synergy that you have bot lane rather than the champion itself. I don't really see Brand as a mid lane pickable character. He has no place anywhere if not bot side. So this nerf might actually make him really, really bad. Here we are again. Diana is getting a buff. I don't really know why this happens. I have no idea. Every time they want to buff jungle and we still wonder why. We have no idea. They're just over buffing camp clear like it's crazy. And those champions could be played literally by a silver player and they will work. Because they are so fast at doing camps that you could literally do, like, you know, full clear in 2 minutes and a half, 2 minutes and 45, whatever. Do full clear 3 times in a row, especially if you go ahead, and from there you basically lost the game. She's getting more monster damage. I don't think that was needed. Honestly, she's already one-shotting a lot. We remember what happened when they buffed monster damage on Diana. And now the bonus alpha on W is even higher, so the hybrid build where she plays with Mask, Liandry's, sorry, not Mask, the Liandry's, and also, I don't remember the other item, kind of like slightly getting buffed. Echo is getting a tiny buff. His passive is gonna proc a bit faster. Echo tends to have really high damage most of the times, but even if he's ahead now, I don't feel that he's as oppressive as many other assassins and champions like that. So making him proc the passive a bit often is surely better than giving him an AP buff, which could lead him to actually be too strong. So I will say that's a completely fine buff. America is getting a few changes because of the minion aggro stuff. Basically, he has more range on towers. I see a few people playing this Heimerdinger right and left, you know, Aigiro, low Willow. It's a niche champion, but it's always like a welcoming thing to actually see some change in the meta. Cassidy is getting a slightly buff, basically less cooldown on Q and slightly more damage on W at the start of the game. Watching how many assassins mid lane there are, playing Cassidy right now might be actually a tragedy. And in general, I don't even feel like he's that oppressive. So you kind of like deserve to win if you're reaching level 16 in the current season, right? This can always be changed if you feel like you did a bit too much, but I feel like this is a really tiny change and it might change something. I don't think it's gonna change as much, but at least they understand that he has a hard time reaching late game, so I'm pretty happy about that. Riot Games understood that they made Queen Jungle playable, but she was horrible, so they finally buffed her properly. People were trying out Queen in Challenger, and every time I was watching them playing, I was literally face palming, just like when Jace went jungle. They improved the damage on passive and Q, finally. I'm pretty happy about that. Let's just say that in the current assassin meta, Queen is quite interesting, for sure. She's really, really good. If they manage to make the numbers right, and the champion has to have a competitive clear compared to the other champions, I'm pretty sure that she's gonna do really well. Smolder is getting another set of nerfs. Honestly, the server that this champion became so stupidly strong. He actually had no lane back in the time. He now has a lane, he has a rune, he has everything, and on top of that he has an insane scaling. Let's just say that he has a Kassadin that also wins the lane. So having another nerf in the passive and how it works in general, a bit less damage in general, Infinity Edge, a lot of changes here that I'm not gonna read, but simply just know that you're gonna deal less damage and the champion got slightly nerfed. Teemo is getting a nerf. I am kind of against that. I think that Teemo is finally playable. You know what I'm saying? Like, Teemo is one of those characters that's almost never playable in an high stage of the game. Like, you can never play him. He feels really bad. You literally have to be ahead. And then those mushrooms, yeah, they are annoying, but you can always lance them. And it's not as oppressive as many people state. Of course, he's a ranged top laner, and that's the main issue of the champion, and the fact that he has static can also outshove the wave really quick. But at the same time, you have to win the lane, and before 6 you're kind of useless. I will say that maybe that's an overreaction. Seeing some Teemo was really interesting. It wasn't landing really well. I feel like I was always losing when I had a Teemo. At least that's me. I don't know about you guys. You can let me know down in the comments if you were winning with Teemo players, but honestly, every time I had him top lane, I kind of like lost right away. And when I had him jungle, I felt like he was always getting out cleared. So this change is, I'm not so sure about that. So basically, he gets less armor per level. That's pretty fine, understandable. You can punish the guy if he's playing topside and you're a melee a bit more. And you have less damage on it on the E. That's understandable, but even then, I don't know if this nerf was needed. AP Xin Zhao is an interesting build concept, and Riot Games of course, doesn't want it in the game. You could literally heal and get a tower while autoing the tower, so that was probably a bit too much. They nerfed how much healing you get with your passive when you auto, so thank fucking god. Now we go to the items parts. Experimental Exploit got nerfed for ADC users, so ranged champs, and got the same stats for melee. I think this is a really good change, especially because this item doesn't really have a place bot side. I saw some people playing Zeri with it, but it's not really a common item, and it doesn't even feel that good in bot side. I would say that this item feels really oppressive instead for top lane, where people play Varus, they play Vayne, and they play this item. You're really tanky, and it feels that you have no counterplay because you can always have ultimate and win the skirmishes. Artsteal is getting a change. You deal more damage based on your health conversion. That's a really risky change. I think Artsteal is really strong as a scaling opportunity, especially for some tanks. Unless you have the answer to them, they feel really, really strong. So of course, champions like Mundo, champions like that, they might actually get back really hard, especially when there are a lot of assassins that can't really burst out tanks. We'll have to see if the ranged meta is so strong that tanks can't really play anymore, because as long as there's no place for them in jungle, and there's also no place for them in topside, it's gonna be really hard to proc this item. Static Shift gets a buff, 5 AD in more. Honestly, I expected this item to become really, really good by the time it came out. In fact, we saw it being used by champions like Teemo, we saw it being used by other champions, but I expected it a bit more in bot side. So I'm kind of interested that they are buffing it, and I want to see how he operates with champions like Kalista or Kai'Sa. This 5 AD might actually change a lot how you perceive the lane. I'm personally not playing him right now on Kalista or Kai'Sa. I'm not even playing those two champions, or I'm playing Kalista with Blade of the Ruined King, because I like sustain a bit more, but because of the new boots, I might actually try this one. A tiny tweak on the runes, Deadfire Touch now will deal magic damage flats, so it's not gonna be based on if you're AD or AP, it's not adaptive force now. So if you were AD, you will have done AD damage, and now it's magic damage. Honestly, everyone playing that was mostly playing AP, but champions like Senna were playing AD, so the adaptive damage was AD instead of AP. Now it's a bit easier to understand. And that's it. Those are the new patches. I hope you enjoyed and you had fun while taking a coffee or whatever it is. Make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Let me know down in the comments what you think about it. Let's hope that this change is actually gonna change something on this game.